Panthers and Avalanche met on Monday night in Colorado. The Panthers put up a fight despite being shorthanded. We'll talk about this and more on today's crossover edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Colorado Avalanche.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Colorado Avalanche. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making both these Locked On podcasts your first listen of the day. For everyone on the Colorado Avalanche feed, let me introduce myself. My name is Armando Velez, the host of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast from the Hockey News. You can follow the show account on X at LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. And grateful to be joined by the two co-hosts of Locked On Colorado Avalanche, Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, and Chris Maselli as well. And guys, great to be connecting with you guys here on this post-game crossover, which we just saw the Florida Panthers lose to the Colorado Avalanche by a final score of 3-1 from Ball Arena.
Yeah, man, good game. Like, this is what I was expecting. I get anxiety like for games like this. They just played like Montreal and going into that game, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's a hockey game, so I'll get up for it. But when you're going up against teams like Florida, and Vegas and stuff like that, like all day long and leading up to it, I just get like jittery. Because it just means a little bit more to me. And I think this game lived up to the bill. It was a fun game, exciting game.
Yeah, especially these are like those measuring stick games that we look forward to. And you have a new face in net for the Colorado Avalanche. So this is the Avalanche 2.0 for 24-25. So these kind of matchups are where you want to stack up like how the pieces are falling together for this current Colorado Avalanche team. And you like how this team matches up against a really good team across division and the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, and we were just talking about pre-recording how for me for the Florida Panthers side of things, this is one of my favorite Western Conference series of the year, and for you guys, it's the mutual for the Colorado Avalanche facing the Eastern Conference team for them, but Florida came into this one shorthanded, which Aaron Ekblad left the game against the Pittsburgh Penguins in the final 6 minutes. Didn't practice yesterday. They had to call up Tobias Bjornfot, only playing his second game in a Florida Panthers sweater on Monday night for the Panthers, and also another game without Niko Mikkola. Dmitry Kulikov going back on that top pair for the Panthers, and I mean for them. It's funny because it was a 11-4 shot on goal advantage for the Colorado Avalanche for the first period. But I mean, despite the dominance as far as shot on goal advantage for the Avs, I felt for the Panthers that even the numbers were, especially at the beginning, were a little deceiving on my when watching it from Florida Panthers perspective. You would think that they were getting odd man rush after odd man rush, but although there was a lot of zone time, I felt that the Panthers were really structured in their own game, and they really felt that they were really trusting the system that Paul Maurice put together. So although the rush chances didn't really come until the end for the Avalanche, I thought the Panthers that really stuck to their with their formula for winning. How did you guys see it from the Avalanche side of things?
I thought this was overall from top to bottom. I thought this was a really well played game by Colorado. In the first period, it got back to one of those things that we've dealt with often in Avalanche land of playing a good period and losing the period. And that was the first. I had no problem with the Avs, how they were playing. Like you said, it was 11-4 shots on goal. And it felt like it, in my opinion. Like it felt like the Avalanche were the ones in control of that period. One screw up along the boards. Josh Manson drops his stick. Casey Middlestat doesn't really get a good play on the puck. Goes the other way, 2-on-1 Panthers, and a really bad defensive play by Keith Middleton. And that's a goal all day long for, when you have guys of that ability on the Panthers side of things. Outside of that, I thought the Avs played one of their most sound games of the year. I think their best game of the year was not that long ago against Winnipeg. but this was just they knew they couldn't blow assignments in this game, or you're going to get destroyed. And defensively, I thought they were great. Offensively, if this was any other goalie, Kyle has been waiting for a 10-goal Avalanche game for a very, very long time. If this was any other goalie, this would have been his game where he can come on and brag that they finally got 10 games. Bobrovsky was incredible. Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible. I'm sure we'll talk about our guy as well, but he saved, or shouldn't say saved the game for them, but kept them in this game as long as they did, because the Avs were just, I thought they were all over him. I did. I thought this was one of their better games of the year. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of felt bad for the Florida Panthers in this position, dropping that game, like Chris mentioned, to Montreal the other night. The Avalanche kind of had to get their swagger back just a little bit, because they dropped a 6-game winning streak in that Montreal loss. So the Avs, and this is their last game of the homestand before they go back on the road. So the Avs kind of had to get their swagger back. And I agree with Chris. This is probably one of their better games that they have played this year. Of course, you'd like to see a little bit more razzmatazz on the power play, but that's not coming for a while. That power play is kind of broken. But the forwards played good, and that one defensive lapse in the first was basically one of your big mistakes. And at that point, like I was sitting there thinking, that's 1 goal on 4 shots on Mackenzie Blackwood. There goes that beautiful save percentage that Avs fans have been loving so much. But they rectified it towards the end. But all in all, this was a really good matchup against a really good team, and I feel really good about the Avs going on the road after this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as you should. The Panthers did, although, shoot themselves in the foot with 2 offensive zone penalties in the beginning of the game. And then there were 2 saves that Sergei Bobrovsky made, right? And both of them were in between TV timeouts, where Belinsky had a centering feed to Jonathan Drouin, where Bob read it perfectly off a redirection. And after puck goes off the post after freezing it before Rantanen got on a follow through there. Eventually, the Colorado Avalanche did score off from Devontae's off the crossbar, and then off of Bobrovsky and in. But then there was a penalty that the Panthers committed after that, after Sam Bennett hooked Jonathan Drouin, where they didn't give up a single shot on goal after that. And Lundell and Luosterainen, they were on the ice for a minute and a half of that PK. There were times where the Panthers on the PK where they had guys over a minute there. There was one toward in the third period where Gustav Forsling laid it on the line for the Panthers. They're taking a shot off the hand. It was like a third of the way through the third period for them. So the guys that you needed to munch minutes for the Panthers, as I'm doing this as I'm talking about the minutes that they needed to munch here. So Gustav Forsling and for the Panthers really munched it for the Panthers. For him playing a total of 22 minutes for him. Expected more, but with the amount of power special teams time that both teams had throughout, he's usually not on special teams, but even strength time that he was on the ice a lot for the Panthers here. And the fact that even before that empty net goal by Mikko Rantanen, which extended his point streak to 14, I mean, it was the secondary scoring for the Avalanche that got it together. So must feel good on that side of the thing to get the secondary for Colorado.
You're not kidding, man. It's really nice seeing like this team like starting to settle in, really in all phases. Your top guys are your top guys. They're always going to be on. You know what I mean? And the goalie problems have been well documented.
Yeah.
And since the trades that they made, that's settled in. And that allows everybody to just play a different game in front of him. They have faith now in their goalie. And Nathan McKinnon said it. He said in the pregame that basically it's nice to have a goalie that can make saves for you. Without like calling out Alexander Georgiev, that is calling out Alexander Georgiev. He's not going to do that like by name. He's not built that way, but you knew what he meant, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong for saying that. So the Avs can go out, they can play their game. If they screw up, they feel pretty good about their goalie bailing them out once or twice a game. When in the past, that didn't happen, and it got them buried. It got them behind all the time. Now they can go focus on when you're playing up against a goalie like Bobrovsky, who's stopping everything in sight. Now they can focus on like really hammering home like shots on net, get in front of the net, mix it up, and not have to worry about, okay, let's cheat a little bit so we have to get back on defense so our goalie doesn't let one in. It's such a different dynamic that they're playing right now, and they're clicking, and they're a pretty dangerous team.
And, this goes to both everybody's points that were brought up earlier. You're talking about Ekblad being out and the Panthers kind of being shorthanded a little bit and having to, kind of crunch for names and numbers. The Avs are going through that same problem too. You don't have Nichushkin in this lineup. You still don't know what's going on with Gabe Landeskog. And I'm speaking to Panthers fans here. Hi, everybody. It's good to entertain you guys as well. But what you see in the Colorado Avalanche is exactly how the Florida Panthers are structured. And when those names, these are two top-tier teams, top 10 in the NHL. And when these absences are made, who you're calling up, they could support because of the quality goaltending you're getting. And these are really good matchups. And I like seeing where Florida is compared to what we've seen like a decade ago. And to see how confident Florida is with everybody in front of them, knowing they got Bobrovsky back there, and whoever you could call up could be comfortable knowing that's back there. Well, now Avalanche fans have that same kind of reassurance with Blackwood.
Yeah, and Sergei Bobrovsky especially. There were times where Nathan McKinnon was going up the gut, and then he was bringing it back to his forehand. But the 5-hole, especially for Sergei Bobrovsky, was definitely closed on the night. So he definitely earned his paycheck on the night for the Panthers, and in a game that for them was peppered with a whole bunch of shots, and 2 straight where he gave the Panthers a chance, but they come up with 0 points in his last 2 starts. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss about our feeling and give a word on how we describe the loss for the Panthers and the win for the Avalanche. We're going to discuss that more next on this crossover edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Avalanche. But first, we're going to tell you guys all about FanDuel. And from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. And because this is a South Florida podcast and a Colorado-based podcast, we do have one of the football teams in the postseason this week for Super Wildcard Weekend in the Denver Broncos, going up to Western New York to face against the Buffalo Bills. So maybe Chris and Kyle, maybe you should put in some bets for Broncos over the Bills. It could be a big payout there.
Yeah. What do you
it's
think?
Time to believe. It's time to believe, baby.
The thing that I think benefits the Broncos is the weather is not going to bother them.
Nope.
If it is, I don't know what the weather's supposed to be, but they're used to the cold. So Buffalo won't have that over them. Anything is possible when you get in the playoffs.
Yeah, so
Bo Nix has ice in his veins, so bring it on.
Yeah, no doubt. He's been a great story in his rookie season in the NFL. But you could go to FanDuel.com today, get started with 200 in bonus bets, and that's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, segment number 2 here on this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Colorado Avalanche. Thank you for making both of our Locked On podcasts your first listen of the day. So I'm going to give it to you guys first on what's the word or words. You could use a few words if you want to describe just the overall feeling of the Colorado Avalanche coming into this game and getting a win. You guys did mention it's the end of a homestand, so I'm sure that would have a lot to do with it. So I'm going to give the floor to you guys.
Go ahead, Kyle. You can take this one.
Honestly, for Avalanche fans, and we talked about the goalies and the end of the homestand and the quality of caliber that Florida is, I would say the one word for this game going on the road trip, this is validation. Trust in where this team is going. And from honestly, losing games to the Columbus Blue Jackets to start the year, like really just leaking goals and watching both goalies be yanked, just not even out of the first period. To go from that to going toe-to-toe against Bobrovsky, you really feel validated on where this team is going and where they're climbing and the quality of Avalanche team that you got going forward. So you have that confidence again. So this is a validating win for the Avalanche.
I like it. We're kind of our Star Wars fans. You Star Wars fans?
Yeah.
Armando?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with like the Death Star. It's fully operational.
So episode 4. So not episode 6.
Sure. Yeah. Because not episode 6. That's that's the end of it. But I do. I feel like this team is just clicking at the right time, and this is kind of what this is the MO of the Avalanche. Have a little bit of a struggle to start the season for whatever reason. It could be injuries this year. It's goalies. Maybe a little bit of injuries too. Definitely, it's not an Avalanche season unless there's injuries. And I'm sure it's true for a lot of teams. But now this is usually when they settle in and come out of it right around the turn of the calendar. And January and February are usually their best months. They backed it up a little bit more. They kind of started this in mid-December, where you saw, and that's all thanks to the trades. And that's what I would say. Like, yeah, for all the assets of the Avalanche that they have right now, and all the aspects that they play in offense, defense, goalie, penalty kill is much improved. And the only thing I guess is the power play. I thought the power play looked better tonight. You had opportunity, at least. You had a different carry, a zone entry, which was beautiful. Avalanche do not do that, Armando. They do the same zone entry for the past 5 years plus, and they gave them a different look. And you see what happened, Kyle? They walked that puck into the zone. It was beautiful. So please keep doing that. So I for the Avalanche, it's Emperor Palpatine. It's fully operational.
Yeah, especially for the Avs power play to start the second. They had 5 shots on goal on that one for them.
Yeah, they were getting shots.
So yeah, they were getting them for sure on that one. But for the Panthers, I would say due to the situation at hand for them going into this, I would say it's maybe a little bit encouraging for them getting to this point. And even though I pull up I talk about the stat about the Panthers and going up against teams that they face off against the last 2 postseasons, their record and everything, those get up games for them. That although they haven't faced the Colorado Avalanche in the playoffs for them, I mean, this is another one of those games where they just get up for right before, now that the score is final on this one. 4 out of the last 6 trips for the Panthers, they go into Denver and win. It's crazy. They can win they don't win in Calgary, they don't win in Chicago, but they can win in Colorado often. But for it being as close as it was and having a lead for a good portion of it, I think it's really encouraging. And for the Panthers, their top guys have struggled a bit lately getting on the score sheet. In their win against the Rangers just last Monday, it was the depth scoring that got them past that one. Even though the Rangers, they're known for getting pinned in their own end, they were the one doing the pinning for the Panthers. And we're really seeing how important someone like Nico Mikkola is, because you have one top guy in Gustav Forsling in your lineup currently, and a whole bunch of third pair guys at the moment for the Panthers. So I would say is encouraging, even though the scoring for the Panthers hasn't necessarily been there for them. So I was going
to ask you a question about because when we talked about this game yesterday and we were previewing it, I kind of threw out there like just from an outsider's perspective on the Panthers, like the impression that I am getting from them is what the Tampa Bay Lightning did for when they were in their run of Stanley Cups. We know we're good. We just, we're not going to put too much emphasis on the regular season. It's important, but just get us in the playoffs and then we'll do our damage. Is that kind of where they're at?
Yeah. And it's funny because I've avoided using this word. This is the first time I'm actually putting this word out there
exclusive
on the podcast airwaves. I have not used the word coasting for the Panthers until I just blurted it out right now. I wouldn't say that the Panthers are necessarily doing that, because we've seen We've seen Paul Maurice give it to his team on the Panther bench just last week in their game against the Carolina Hurricanes. So I wouldn't say I don't want to use that word to describe the Panthers, but at the same time, it's for them. It's really hard to, when you have such a short summer and you know that when you've been there before, it's hard to just continue to do it over and over again. I mean, I'm sure you guys can discuss how the Avalanche were in that 2023 season for them, right? Although they did make the playoffs, they were in the first round against Seattle. But how did you guys feel after coming off that cup win, just the regular season after?
Well, and this was something I was going to bring up as well when you were analyzing the season. Like, heavy is the head that wears the crown. It's the way you win the Stanley Cup is also how teams start to model how to win the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
And that could be a little bit of a force that you have to push against. Like, the Avalanche had a speedy, talented top line, and you saw that get them to the Stanley Cup. And then the next year, you see Vegas built top to bottom as just a wall, a never-ending, relentless push.
Blue line was great.
Yeah, and it countered the Avalanche in that speed. And it's the same thing. The Florida Panthers, you went on that miraculous run. The way you built your team won you the cup, but it's also going to be one of the things that people are building themselves to. So you have to kind of modify things just a little bit, which the Avalanche are doing now. They're with the goalie tandem, like a legitimate stand-up tandem. And how they're handling things, the Panthers will have to do the same. In 23, they just fell short. 24, you're expecting maybe a little bit better, but time will tell. Same with the Florida Panthers. We've been there. We're sitting where you were. You got to modify just a little bit because the target's on your back.
Yeah, and great front offices and coaches know how to not necessarily reinvent the wheel in general, but reinvent themselves while knowing what the opposition is giving you, on how they're pressuring you and how you adjust, especially because you're the one being hunted now, and everyone wants to be in your specific position as champions. And this is what the Panthers are going to have to continue to navigate, especially with the trade deadline just coming actually 2 months from today for the NHL. So speaking of that, we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are officially at the halfway point for both the Colorado Avalanche and the Florida Panthers, playing 41 games each. And now we're going to talk about the position that both teams find themselves in at the moment. We're going to discuss that next after the guys tell us more from Rocket Money.
All right. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? I think that's definitely happened to most people. We have a few subscriptions that you didn't even realize that you were still paying for, and Rocket Money has made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit for the year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users that have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Once again, rocketmoney.com/locked-on.
All right, third and final segment here on this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Colorado Avalanche. Thank you once again for making both of our Locked On podcasts your first listen of the day. All right, both teams are at the 41 game mark officially. The Colorado Avalanche 25-15-1. The Florida Panthers are 24-15-2. So just a point difference between the two teams. But obviously the two conferences are in different states. I would say that the Western Conference is the better of the two conferences this season. I mean, when you look at the wild card race for the East, I mean, both of these teams just recently lost to Montreal. I spoke about that in my preview, and I mean, they won against Vancouver in a comeback fashion on Monday Night Prime for them. So they're in the last spot. And with based on points percentage, the Florida Panthers, if the season were to end today, it would be a battle of Florida in the first round for them based on the points percentage. They played 5 less games than the Boston Bruins, and they still find themselves just 3 points behind them. And they'll play each other on Thursday right before the Panthers welcome the Bees to town on Saturday afternoon from sunrise. But I mean, you look at the Colorado Avalanche where they're at. They look like at this point in time, they just went up to the 3rd spot in the division, but via points percentage, the Dallas Stars are ahead. So that would put the Avalanche on the Pacific side of the playoff bracket. So we spoke about getting to the playoffs, getting to just trying to get healthy. But the Avalanche 9-3-0 against the Pacific Division this season for them. So how are you feeling at the 41 game mark for Colorado?
Go ahead, Kyle.
I'm glad we're asking this question now at 41 instead of the 21 game mark. At the 21 game mark, it was holding on by the skin of your teeth. You had no idea who was going to get hot, what the goalies were going to look like that night. Now you have honestly, you have an identity. You feel good with Nathan McKinnon is leading the league. Like, he's having an incredible quiet year. Cale Makar, incredible quiet year. Mikko Rantanen, another incredible quiet year. You have a really good goalie tandem. Like, this team feels good. You feel confident. Avalanche fans feel confident. Like, how they navigate the other 41 games this year, you feel good in all 41. When you get in the playoffs, take a name out of a hat, you feel good with whoever you have to face for 7 games. Like, the confidence level in this team, what you see night in, night out through all 3 periods, you feel really good no matter who the Avalanche have to face.
Yeah, first, I wouldn't use the term quiet year for those 3. I would just use like ho hum, like, oh, they're doing it again. Yep. Maybe that's what you mean by that.
Superstars mean superstars.
Yeah, right. So, which is what you want, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as the standings goes, I don't know if this is legit, but I just always feel like the Dallas Stars have games in hand every single year on people.
They just buy them.
I could be wrong in that, but again, they have 3 games in hand right now on Colorado, and the Avs are only 2 games or 2 points up on them. I mean, obviously that stuff evens out, but Kyle's right. Like, where this team was, I never really felt like they were going to miss a playoff spot. I didn't really feel that way, but there were moments where I was feeling like it might be one of those things where you're battling for a wild card spot. And now I can't wait for the second half of the season, because this team is just we've said it many times this episode, they're clicking. And I think, the rest of the league, maybe under their breath, is like, oh God, here comes Colorado again. Like, I genuinely feel that way. And it's not just because I cover the team and I'm a fan of the team. I think people realize what the Avs have now. And like Kyle said, once they get there, they have confidence no matter who their opponent is. If the rest of the season pans out how these last few weeks have gone, when you get to the playoffs, I think their mindset is, we can play with anybody. Yeah. And you're seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the Avs to get those trades early for the goaltenders, yes. I mean, I'm just looking at Mackenzie Blackwood's save percentage, only 2 games where he's had under 900, and one of them came in relief off of that horrible injury to Scott Wedgwood just last week.
And I'm willing to bet before him, they had 2 games that were over 900. I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah. So
it's just a complete reversal. Complete.
You think about for Colorado at the time, it's like, are they going to be the last team in, versus now it's like, okay, now they're back to, okay, multiple rounds, a possible Western Conference final for them once again, and maybe even further. But for Panthers on this side of things,
real quick, they're only 5 points behind Winnipeg now. They were like 14 points behind them in what, beginning of November, middle
Without
of
a
November?
full roster. Like we still have injuries.
Like
Yeah.
they are humming. Yeah.
And to think that in the offseason, they only had 20 roster players up to the salary cap, from what I remember.
It's been remarkable how they've been doing it. So
this is why the GMs are paid the big bucks to do what
Mhm.
they do. But also another connection for the Panthers and the Avalanche is what's going to happen at Four Nations. I mean, the Avalanche, the players are only representing two countries for Canada and Finland. Arturi Lenkinen and Mikko Rantanen for Finland. Devontae's, Cale Makar, and Nathan McKinnon. But they're going to meet the Panthers there too. Reinhart and Bennett on Team Canada for them. 4 Finns for the Panthers on Team Finland for them. So there's going to be a lot of getting to know each other then. And who knows? Maybe these two eventually meet in June again for maybe the Stanley Cup final. Which once again, we spoke about the best, our favorite out of conference series of the year.
Yeah.
But these guys are gonna cross paths multiple times. At least one time coming up.
Who's your pick for Four Nations?
Oh
Is
man,
going straight Canada, or do you think Sweden can pull something out? Like, what do you think?
I wouldn't doubt it, because I mean for what they have in that. I mean, for who knows where Kevin Lankinen has been a great story for the Vancouver Canucks with the injuries that's happened with Vancouver. I'm not sure if he's going to be the starter. Linus Ullmark is hurt right now for the Ottawa Senators, so we don't know who's going to be in net for them. You never know. Finland has mostly role players for them outside of the stars. So it's going to be interesting how they match up against which the forward lines for Canada is just out of this world.
Yeah.
But USA has the best goaltending. They have Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox, 2 blue liners who could score. I'm American, but based on the roster, I think USA has to be the favorite.
Yeah. You probably saw that post of the salary caps for all Four Nations.
Oh, Canada is like almost double more.
Well, yeah, Finland's like 62 million, and US and Canada are both like in the 120 millions. Yeah. So hey, but you got to play the games. That's why you play the games. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be fun.
And I'm sure both Avalanche and Panthers players that share the same team are just going to be sharing stories on how good of a guy Erod is.
Yes. I spoke about that so many times about when which Erod took a puck to a certain region tonight, which that looked like it hurt. Speaking of Erod,
he got back out there though.
He stayed in. But Evan Rodriguez, I spoke about how much he has played with certain stars, with Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, and then complementing that with Alexander Barkov. I mean, he was the assist on the first goal in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final at the end of a power play to Carter Verhaeghe there. So I mean, 4 goals in the Stanley Cup final for the Panthers has just been an ultimate difference maker, and just crazy. Buffalo, for some reason, Buffalo sends players to certain locations and they find a way to win. Montour, Dmitry Kulikov, even though he wasn't necessarily a trade to the Panthers. So Erod, Eichel, and
there's some guys that don't hang around too long for your team. They're there for a hot minute and then they leave, and some of them leave like an impression. Definitely Evan Rodriguez.
Yep,
definitely. Most guys that are there for a short amount of time and go, they're out of my head, out of sight, out of mind. Good luck wherever you go next. But he was one that I was sad to see go, and yeah, he's just a great guy, and you from afar you do root for him. So I do have a little bit of love in my heart for Evan Rodriguez, and I do miss him. He'd be perfect for this team still.
Yeah, and a recent Panther that left that Panther fans really liked was Mason Marchment, who signed with the Dallas Stars. A great story for him after the death of his father, Brian Marchment, and then the relationships that really helped him sign with the Stars during a horrible time in his life. So glad that he got the community and hopefully the healing that he's currently going through from that. So that is definitely one player that is for sure missed for the Panthers on their side of things. But for the Panthers, they're just trying to continue to chug along here as they're just trying to go game by game, really, for them. And I'm sure for the Avalanche, it's the same thing for them now that they are back mostly as far as the conversation of, okay, now that they got their goaltending, the superstars are doing their thing. Now you throw the records out the window once you see the Colorado Avalanche on the other side of things, whether they do end up on the Pacific side of the playoff bracket. With the resume, it's not something that you could just ignore.
Okay.
No, and that's the thing with the Avalanche. Like, they are, the way they're built, like, especially like even in the regular season, like, they have such confidence that they could beat anybody. And if they suffer a loss, like to a Montreal, to a Columbus, it's not going to derail what they're doing. So they could keep on pushing along. Like, I really love the confidence in this team. And it's not where you're at the beginning of the year where you're counting points. And because we've seen this team have to get in on a game 82 situation. And it doesn't, like, you throw up any Western team in that playoff format, this team is deep enough. Like, we had guys on their third, fourth NHL game playing against Florida, holding their own. Like, you feel confident in whoever is wearing the burgundy and blue to do the job because they understand the assignment and they're going to get that win.
No doubt. And it's all about trusting the systems, and Jared Bednar and Paul Maurice definitely have a lot of trust within both of their respective squads. And who knows, maybe it'll end up in a meeting once again, like I mentioned earlier.
I wouldn't mind it
in June. I wouldn't mind it neither. But I want to thank you guys for doing this crossover edition with my with me, wrapping up this 3-1 Avs win over the Florida Panthers, a season sweep for the Avalanche over the Cats. Tell my listeners where they can follow you guys online.
Follow the show on all the social media, LOPN_Avalanche on X. We're on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and obviously YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Just search Locked On Avalanche. Yeah.
Awesome. And for the Avalanche listeners, you could follow the show account at LO_FLA Panthers on X and Instagram on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers as well. And also follow show account, the podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts, and as well on YouTube. So great chatting with you guys. And maybe I'll see you guys down the line. Maybe.
I hope so.
Yeah. See you in June.
Yeah.